Loving the new record. I've got the CD in my hand, been listening to it, I think, all night and today. It sounds huge.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of bold new territory for us, for better or worse, depending on who you ask.
I'm sure all the critics will have their own interpretation of that one.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay away from that right now. That's kind of something you don't need in your head when you're about to leave home for 7 weeks to go on tour.
Yeah, no joke. But to look at it, what about a year from now and try to figure out what they all made sense of it, how they made sense of it?
Well, the shows are, the shows are selling really well, and so that's really all I care about. The people who really like the band and want to see us play.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say that what the critics say doesn't have any influence whatsoever, but as long as the kids like it and they want to come see us play, I'm happy. If nobody was buying tickets to our shows, I might be really worried.
Not the case. Well, I mean, for good reason. Again, it's a great record. You're talking about those live shows too, and I was noticing the artwork. It really stresses the live show. Like that's what you guys did with the booklet again.
Yeah, I mean, the goal behind that, well, with all the records since we started was, we're kind of from the pre-internet music fan generation. We grew up listening to records before the internet was around, so we kind of remember what it was like to have just the physical copy of the record. And for a lot of times, that'd be really all you knew about the band, was some photos and the lyrics. And, that was, unless you kind of, maybe they were big enough to be in a magazine or on TV, that might be all you really knew about them. And so we wanted to kind of preserve this thing with our records where, if you went to the record store and you just bought all the Japandroids records, you could kind of visually see the band and the evolution of the band and the life of the band actually in the records. You can see us growing older from record to record to record, and just kind of get a real idea of like who we are and what we're about and stuff like that from, holding something in your hand.
Yeah. There was something you were saying there that reminded me. There was one of Kiss's live albums that they put out, and I don't remember which one it was, but it's got this picture on the back, or maybe it's in the gatefold, but of these two kids standing in the stadium, and they've got their Kiss sign, and the look on their face is just complete, like, this is their world, this is what they'd been waiting for all summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a kind of, in the digital age, I think it's a bit of a lost art form in a way. There's a lot of artists that don't even, there's a lot of big artists that don't even press CDs in vinyl anymore. Mm-hmm. So people don't have a visual kind of component to go along with the music aside from whatever they see on the internet. So, I think that's just something that comes from our age and growing up listening to music and what was kind of cool and important to us. And we just wanted to preserve that, even though, a lot of people will say that that's a really kind of outdated or irrelevant way of spending your time and money.
I don't know. I mean, if people love the romance of vinyl enough for, one, older generations to re-embrace it, and two, newer generations to fall in love with it, I mean, I think what you're saying is completely on track. That connection. I think people are looking for that connection.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly am, and of course I don't speak for everyone, but maybe that's there's constantly these articles about the resurgence of vinyl and how much more people are selling. And, I suppose you just, you stare at the screen for long enough and, real music fans eventually just want something more than that.
Yeah. Now, I know a lot of, back to the press, I suppose, has been talked about, you guys taking 5 years to do that. Is it unfair to say that is a long time for this record? Was the entire time?
I mean, I think it's like a long time in terms of, you just subtract 2017 from 2012, and it seems like it took us 5 years to make this record. But it's a little unfair in the sense that we spent 2 full years touring Celebration Rock. And, that was, people really responded to that record, and we tried to play as many places as we could and kind of bring that live show experience to people all over the world. And I've read a lot of things that are sort of like, kind of down on us for taking that long to make it. And I think a lot of those people tend to forget that we actually spent many years trying to bring it to people, and that we weren't just sitting around doing nothing, and then after that, we spent a year writing and recording it. And I mean, this record's actually been done for quite a long time. It's just the nature of the music business that unfortunately, it doesn't come out the day after we finish mastering it, which most bands would like. And especially if you want to press physical copies, that's a huge advantage of going just digital is, it can come out almost as soon as you're done making it. So, but yeah, I mean, but it is also fair in the sense that we just wanted to take our time this time. We were really, really rushed making our first 2 records, and it had a kind of a negative impact on the whole process for us. And this time we were just lucky enough that we actually had the, some time to experiment and to kind of enjoy the process, and we decided to take advantage of it.
Yeah. When did the album actually begin? And I mean, and when you guys went into it, did you have a strong idea of what you were looking for, as far as the evolution and concept goes?
I think that we really had more of an idea of what we didn't want to do. I think by the time we finished touring Celebration Rock, we felt like we'd kind of really done this one thing kind of to death. And I think it just didn't really interest us in continuing to write the same kind of songs and record them the same kind of way. And, I wouldn't say that it was never something like, we're going to break up. It wasn't like that. It was just more like, I think the idea of, we found something that was successful enough for us, and there was a lot of pressure just to keep doing that and repeat that because we knew people liked that, and we could probably sustain our career, our touring, all this sort of stuff if we just, made another copy of what we'd already done. And that just really didn't excite either one of us. We didn't really feel the same excitement that we felt when we made those old records. So we just decided that despite the fact that some people were not going to like it if we changed our sound or changed the songwriting or changed the production on the record or any of these things, we just decided to hell with it. It was something that we really wanted to do. And as soon as we made that decision, all of a sudden it became really exciting to play in the band again. We were very excited to try new things and to play together. And it was kind of reminded me a lot of when we first started the band. We were actually excited to get together and play. So it really just became, we don't want to do X, but we still don't really know what Y is going to be. And this is kind of our first attempt at just sort of like, trying a ton of new things at the same time.
Yeah. Now I did read, and I don't think I realized if it was their interpretation or if it was real, but is there a loose album narrative for this? Is it lyrically sort of a thematic thing?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And that's not something that you sit down and plan out in advance. I mean, it's certainly not a concept album. When you have all your songs at the final stage, trying to kind of create some kind of, journey from the beginning of the end. A lot of my favorite rock and roll records feel like the listener kind of goes on a journey, and there's like a bunch of different moods, and they're kind of put in the songs are sequenced in a way that's sort of like kind of tells somewhat of a story. And this is all done after the fact. So like I said, it's not like all the songs are linked in that way, but we tried very hard to pick pick certain songs and put them in a sequence that if you just listen to the record, you kind of feel like, there's some kind of emotional journey kind of going on that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. I've had so much fun with the character in the title track as I try to imagine him. He is so excitable.
Well, yeah, and I also think there's some fear and some doubt in that too. I feel that to me that song, there's a lot of fear and doubt or trepidation in the verses, and then there's a sense of like, just kind of going for it with to hell with it kind of attitude in the choruses, and to me they kind of alternate. So I feel like we always tended to focus really hard on the positive aspects of every story or every song, and just wipe them free of anything kind of negative. And I feel like this one, we tried not to do that as much. We tried to still put in a little bit of sense of something that might not just be a rallying cry or party, 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 or something that at least reflected a bit more accurately like real people and real feelings. And because there's definitely a sense of excitement, but there's real people also have a lot of other feelings that go along with that: fear, doubt, etc.
And what about Ark of Bar, which really seems sort of like the, the tent post of this whole thing, Like
that's
really different.
That song
for you guys.
is very. Sorry,
No, it's
sorry,
okay.
I interrupted you.
No, I was just saying that song is really different for you guys.
Yeah, and that was a very conscious effort. I mean, there's, you know, I think at some point along the way we kind of got into a songwriting formula. Like we had an order that we sort of follow, and that produces a Japandroid song. And it took us many years to learn how to do that. But once we figured out how to do it, it was fairly easy for us to put a song together. And we realized that if we never broke free of that formula, we'd never write anything different or really kind of interesting or away from what we'd already done. And so that was one song where we purposely decided to try a whole different way of songwriting, which was I wrote the lyrics first and we did the music afterwards to fit the music, which is typically we write a song in the opposite way. So when you have all of these lyrics and you have to build the music around it, there was just no way it was going to turn out like one of our older songs. Like we had to think of a new way to write, and you know that was a lot of trial and error, which was frustrating but also really fun. And that's kind of what came out at the end.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's sort of mesmerizing, especially with that, synth line that you've got going on in there. I mean, when you guys are doing that live, I mean, are you able to pull off, all the sounds that you're doing?
Well, interestingly enough, what sounds like synth to you is actually guitar. There's no synth on that song.
That's cool.
I'm actually making a very synthetic sound with my guitar, which is another kind of brand new thing for us, because previously the only guitar pedal I used on any of our early recordings was a distortion pedal. So it's not really breaking new ground in terms of guitar playing, but it's just something new and interesting for us at least. Yeah. But to answer your question, I mean, there's definitely some elements on this record that are hard to produce live, and we've been kind of experimenting with how exactly we kind of pull some of this stuff off. But that's also part of the fun of it. I think that we toured for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows, doing everything kind of the same. And it just, I mean, I still think we played really great shows, but after a while, you kind of lose that sense of kind of potential chaos at the show or trying something new. And it becomes a little bit repetitive. And really part of the fun actually about getting ready to go on tour is knowing that we're going to be trying lots of new things every night. And kind of mixing it up a bit. And I think that's going to lead to just a more exciting and more kind of live show, if that makes sense.
Well, you guys certainly have the reputation for those live shows. I can't wait to see one myself on this tour. I love the record. So thanks again for taking the time. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, we'll see you out on the road.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.